Revenge with Karen.
I knew he didn't read the policy binder the second he called it a cute little spreadsheet fortress. Cute. Little. I'd spent 5 goddamn years coding that system from scratch, while surviving 3 reorgs, 2 Christmas Eve patch deployments, and 1 incident where the VP's nephew tried to upload a Snapchat filter into our compliance portal just to see if it would work. It did, briefly. Then it nuked a month of logs. But fine, let them pretend I was just the audit lady with a label maker fetish. Let them smile politely while I explained how internal controls actually work, then ignore every single warning I flagged about admin key backups, chain of custody logs, and dual auth enforcement. I wasn't there for the glory. I was there because someone had to keep this glitter-glued carnival of a company from getting federally spanked. And for 5 years, I did. Silently. Effectively. Some of them were still spelling compliance with a Y. My name's Karen. I build systems that don't crash. Systems that make or break federal contracts. You wouldn't know it to look at me, middle-aged, budget haircuts, cardigan collection that screams don't hit on me, Chad, but my code runs deep. So when we landed that $180 million Department of Infrastructure Modernization grant, that was me. Not the posturing, not the LinkedIn fluff, not the interns in their startup hoodies. Just me, riding the rule tree while reheating lasagna in the break room microwave. And no, I don't need a standing ovation. But I do need you to hit the like button and subscribe if you're listening. Because 95% of y'all are lurking freeloaders. And honestly, that's fine. I'm used to being the unsung hero. But it really helps the team when you hit that little thumbs up and that red button. Get more stories like this, and we'll get, well, slightly fewer ulcers. Anyway, back to the quiet collapse of my sanity. See, the audit-proof system wasn't born out of ambition, it was born out of fear. In year 2, when our previous COO got canned for accidentally misclassifying a $12 million vendor invoice, I realized the only way this place survives the next decade is if someone, anyone, builds an internal control architecture that even a chimp with Wi-Fi couldn't accidentally disable. So I did. I built it with more redundancies than a Mormon pantry. Key-based access, identity reauth, red flag triggers for things like manual overrides or duplicate vendor entries. And while they were off getting laser-engraved Yeti mugs with the company logo, I was quietly pushing a small policy through HR. Just a line item. Harmless, really. Co-administrator designation required for emergency override per internal policy 8.3a. Sounds boring. Boring enough that legal didn't read past the clause. HR rubber-stamped it like it was PTO rollover. Then I did the real magic. I filed the co-admin designation myself. Per protocol, it had to be someone on payroll. Someone cleared, but not necessarily trained. And I picked someone, carefully. Not for their skill set, oh no, their sheer, weaponized uselessness. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind a bit. I wasn't always invisible. Back when we were still a 50-person shop working out of a converted dentist's office, I was the go-to, the fixer, the ask Karen when something broke. Then came growth. Then came investors. Then came a thick fog of middle managers who spoke in mission statements and PowerPoint transitions. And then came him, the new VP of Ops, Tristan. Yes, really, Tristan wore leather loafers without socks, referred to himself as a disruptor. He once called an all-hands just to announce that his dog had 10K followers on Instagram. Tristan didn't understand systems. He understood optics. His kind didn't care that the audit trails needed quarterly verifications or that non-repudiation protocols weren't optional. He cared about streamlining, about agility, about trimming legacy fat. I was legacy fat. I saw it coming like a slow train in a snowstorm. He started consolidating. Department heads were told to justify overhead. Suddenly my team, 3 rock-solid engineers and 1 poor guy who thought audit logs were something you ordered at Home Depot, was tasked with knowledge-sharing sessions for unpaid interns. Tristan called it a mentorship initiative. I called it what it was, gutting expertise and selling it for vibes. Still, I stayed quiet, smiled through the bullshit, documented everything, and quietly prepared my exit. I made backups of the backups. I triple encrypted the admin logs. I left just enough breadcrumbs for someone competent to recover the system if they had the right keys. And I made sure that my last act, should I ever be streamlined, would leave an impression. It's funny. You can spend 5 years building the most sophisticated, regulation-compliant system this side of Fort Knox. The most powerful thing in that entire setup A name, one name, on one form, filed on one Tuesday afternoon. And that name, well, let's just say it wasn't who they expected. Tristan arrived on a Monday like an unskippable ad, loud, smug, and convinced he was God's gift to operational excellence. Walked in with aviators on indoors, shook hands like he was closing a real estate deal in Miami, and introduced himself to the department with, "Believe in tearing down silos, folks. Let's smash some walls." Which, I assume, meant you're all fired, just not immediately. First red flag, he called our compliance stack legacy tech with limited ROI, which is a fancy way of saying, I don't understand what this does, so I'm going to kill it. I watched the color drain from our lead infrastructure guy's face. Second red flag, he called me ma'am in a tone usually reserved for ordering decaf. Within 2 weeks, split the entire operations floor into agility pods, which sounds like something you'd buy at a yoga retreat. Everyone had to reapply for value-aligned roles. They posted this on a whiteboard next to the vending machines like it was a goddamn camp schedule. Team leads were suddenly rebranded as initiative facilitators. Half our risk assessment templates were migrated to Notion by an intern who thought compliance was just fancy receipts. And wouldn't you know it, first on the chopping block, senior women, not openly of course, that would be illegal. But oh, the patterns. Cheryl from procurement, reassigned. Lydia from finance controls, realigned with market demand. Me, recommended for mentorship reallocation. I didn't even ask what the hell that meant. HR didn't know either. They just gave me a pamphlet with pastel bubbles and a cartoon owl that said, "Let's navigate change together." It was death by 1,000 buzzwords. My team, a solid crew who actually understood things like chain of custody logs, audit triggers, and the difference between data access and data ownership, was now expected to knowledge share with Tristan's crop of handpicked interns. Interns who, I swear to God, once asked me how to hack into Excel. Not a joke. Real words. From someone whose email signature included Digital Ninja. Tristan strutted through the halls like he was auditioning for a documentary on hubris. He never logged into the actual systems himself. Didn't know the password to our compliance portal. When he needed audit reports, he clicked a dashboard I built 3 years ago and called it data democratization. He had no idea those dashboards were just polished windows into much deeper, heavily authenticated pipelines that required multiple layers of authorization. He thought clicking a chart made him a compliance expert. I watched. I documented. I didn't flinch. Because that's what they expect, right? That we'll flinch. That we'll panic when they start tossing words like efficiency model or phase migration. That we'll get so desperate to keep our paychecks, we'll train our own replacements with a smile. But I'm not built that way. My roots go deeper than their quarterly strategy decks. While they shuffled org charts and brainstormed ways to put a nap pod in the break room, I kept digging. I watched him meet with vendors over lunch, ones we hadn't even vetted. I noticed how he deferred every technical question to someone else, always looping in someone with actual skills while he nodded like a bobblehead in a Porsche. And I noticed something else, something no one else seemed to catch. He never once logged into the audit portal, not even to poke around, not even to change a setting. His name never appeared in the access logs. He operated entirely off read-only dashboards, which meant he never triggered a single authentication protocol. And that meant everything. Because here's the thing about Tristan's agility pods, they were about control. But my system, it wasn't designed for control. It was designed for proof. Every login, every data pull, every override, time-stamped, credentialed, stored, and federal auditors, they don't care about your TikTok strategy. They care about custody chains. They care about access paths. They care about who had the keys and what they did with them. Tristan never had the keys. He didn't even know there were keys. So I stayed quiet, kept smiling. Taught the interns how not to delete our compliance logs by accident. Didn't work. They did, twice. And I waited, because I knew the moment he got too comfortable, too cocky, too careless, he'd come for me next. And when he did, well, let's just say I'd already planned for that exact moment. Down to the timestamp. Let's give a warm round of applause to Karen for her legacy contributions, Tristan said into the mic, standing dead center in the middle of the Tuesday all-hands like he was hosting open mic night at WeWork. But moving forward, we're embracing a more agile structure, and her role is now redundant. He smiled, the kind of smile you'd see on a crocodile that just found a duckling. Sweetie, we need flexibility. Sweetie. He called me sweetie. In front of the entire company, HR, legal, finance, even the dam facilities crew who actually knew how our fire suppression system worked. It echoed in the room like a slap. The silence that followed was the kind you only get when everyone knows a line just got crossed, but no one wants to be the one who says it. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I didn't even blink. I just stood there, nodded once, and said, of course. I'll submit my documentation shortly. I reached into my laptop bag, pulled out my badge, and placed it on the table next to the projector remote with surgical precision. No tremble in the hand, no hesitation, just the badge, the signal, the match hitting dry tinder. Across the room, legal just kind of nodded. One of them scribbled something in a notebook without looking up. Another checked their watch. This was clearly routine to them. Another reshuffle. Another dinosaur out the door. Nothing to see here. They didn't realize they just authorized the removal of the one person who actually understood the federal data chain they'd staked a $180 million contract on. And why would they? I'd made myself forgettable on purpose. Thing about building systems that are too good to fail is that no one sees you anymore. They just see the blinking green lights and assume all's well. They assume the machine is the genius, not the mechanic. So when the mechanic walks out, they don't even check which tools she took with her. On the surface, my exit was clean, respectful, quiet. But there was one final task. A protocol step I'd buried deep in the admin panel, and that only activated if my account was flagged as inactive due to restructuring. The moment Tristan's reorg spreadsheet hit the HR feed, it triggered my silent exit script. And the final step, it wasn't sabotage. It wasn't illegal. It was compliance. Step 1, auto-lock admin credentials for all systems requiring dual auth for compliance access. Step 2, notify primary co-administrator via secure channel. Step 3, revoke recovery rights from any non-credentialed override requests unless both co-admins approve. Simple, elegant, ironclad. The twist, I was one co-admin, and the other, well, I'd picked someone whose presence in the system was so unexpected, so absurd, that even reading their name would feel like a punchline. Someone technically on payroll, technically verified, but functionally useless in this context. I left the office the way I'd walked in every day for 5 years, cardigan on, coffee in hand, badge clipped neatly to the hem of my ID lanyard. Except now the badge was gone, and the smile on my face wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. I passed Tristan near the elevators. He didn't even look up from his phone, probably tweeting some wisdom nugget like failure is just feedback. And legal, too busy reviewing merger timelines and policy decks to notice that a central compliance key had just been wiped from the system, legally, methodically, and without a single violation. By the time the door slid shut behind me, the fuse was lit. They just didn't know it yet. They tried to run a mock audit that Friday. I know because Gavin, the poor compliance analyst who used to shadow me like a nervous duckling, texted me a panicked, "Hey, just checking, do you remember where the dual auth logins are?" from his personal number. I didn't respond. I just watched the 3 gray dots of him typing, then stopping, then typing again, then nothing. Later, I heard from a friend in infrastructure. We'll call her Janelle. She owes me a favor for fixing her laptop mid-board meeting last year, that they'd attempted a systems access trace around 2 p.m. and hit a wall. Literally. Test audit crashed on login step 2. First credential, easy. Admin dashboard loaded up like always. But when they clicked into the live compliance environment, access denied, and not your average password expired denial. We're talking the digital equivalent of an airlock hissing shut in a sci-fi movie. No override prompt, no forgot password, link. Just a cold, blinking box, dual authentication required. Co-administrator authorization pending. Didn't even know what that meant. Gavin, bless his soul, started digging through Confluence pages I wrote 3 years ago. You know the ones, those dense, dry documentation sheets everyone ignores until something breaks. I could picture him now, highlighter in hand, sweating through his department-issued polo, trying to decode protocol steps written for people who actually understand compliance engineering. Tristan, of course, didn't care. Relax, he told the room, slouching across 3 ergonomic chairs like a man without a worry. We'll fix it Monday. No one's dying. Someone, probably the new head of IT, who used to run an Etsy store for beard oils, reminded him that Monday was the federal audit, the quarterly one, the one tied to our retention of the contract. Tristan waved him off. Just loop in legal, or reset the passwords or something. Reset the passwords or something. This man was going to try and brute force a system designed specifically to prevent brute forcing. Meanwhile, I was invisible, silent, and I intended to stay that way. You don't yell fire in a room full of matches, you just strike one and leave. I went hiking that weekend, unplugged, no Slack, no email, just pine needles and the faint echo of chaos rolling toward a deadline. Monday morning, 8:07 a.m., the audit team walked in. 3 of them. Blazers, briefcases, clipboards that might as well have said, "We're not here to smile." I'm told Tristan greeted them like he was welcoming guests to a tech salon. Probably tried to shake hands and make jokes about efficiency culture. The audit lead, Marisol, a woman with the patience of a courtroom stenographer and the social skills of a granite countertop, cut him off mid-sentence. "We'll need real-time access to your compliance environment," she said. "Full visibility into admin credentials, chain of custody logs, and any recent structural changes." Gavin froze. He opened the dashboard, clicked once, twice. Then the login prompt hit again. Authentication required. Co-administrator authorization. Tristan blinked. "Didn't we fix that already?" Someone tried to manually reroute the login path through a dummy shell Gavin had whipped up over the weekend. It failed. System flagged it as a breach attempt and locked them out for 15 minutes. Then came the flood of internal messages, Slack threads titled Urgent Audit Access. And can we get Karen's credentials and my personal favorite, who is second admin? The thing is, they couldn't get my credentials, because per protocol, they were destroyed on badge surrender. That wasn't me being spiteful. That was the system following orders. And as for the second admin, they were about to find out. That morning, IT finally pulled up the policy record in HRIS, the one with the co-admin designation I filed months ago. And let me tell you, there's a moment when tech guys go from mildly confused to existentially unmoored, and that moment came the second they read the name. The record was real, time-stamped, approved, legal verified the signature. HR had no objections, only one problem. The name made no sense. Because it wasn't a compliance officer, wasn't a team lead, wasn't even someone in ops. It was the facility's custodian. Leonard, part-time, early shifts, sweet old guy with a limp and a Walkman who whistled Journey songs while restocking toilet paper. The auditors asked, "Who's Leonard?" Gavin said, "Janitor." Then the lead auditor smiled, slowly, and chuckled. "That," she said, closing her clipboard, "is a first. They hadn't even opened the system yet. And already it was over." Arrived at 9:04 a.m. sharp. No fanfare, no heads up, just 3 federal auditors with clipboards, stone-cold expressions, and zero interest in pleasantries. Their badges weren't even shown unless someone dared to ask. The receptionist buzzed legal, and within minutes, Tristan was on the move like a man walking into his own roast and thinking he was the host. "Gentlemen," he beamed, loud enough for half the floor to hear, "welcome to the future of operations compliance." He even tried the dumb fist bump thing he does when he's nervous. Auditor number 1 stared at it like it was a hostile object. Auditor number 2 adjusted her glasses and said flatly, "We're here for the Q4 review. We'll need real-time access to all internal control systems, audit logs, and chain of custody records for the last 90 days. Preferably before lunch." Tristan smirked and turned to legal like this was some routine show and tell. "Tell M what we've got, James." James, mid-40s, tired tie, clearly wishing he was still in private sector litigation, cleared his throat. "We've recently undergone a systems refresh for greater agility and transparency. You'll find our compliance portal has been optimized for seamless third-party oversight." "We'll see for ourselves," Auditor 2 interrupted, already opening her laptop. "You don't need a tour, just access." That's when the tension shifted. Up to that moment, Tristan had been performing, gesturing at glass conference rooms, talking about agile pods and audit-friendly infrastructure. But now, the room got still, real quiet, like a hunting lodge seconds before someone opens a door and finds blood on the floor. The auditors plugged in. Gavin, sweating bullets under his button-down, typed in his own admin credentials and pulled up the public-facing compliance dashboard. It loaded fine. Pretty charts, historical data. Pie graphs that looked impressive to anyone who didn't know what they were looking at. But Auditor 3, the youngest of the bunch, leaned over and said, "This is just a visualization layer." "Where's the live data interface?" Gavin hesitated. Right, that's behind the secure partition. Dual auth required." "Okay," said Auditor 2. "Log in." Click. Credential 1, Gavin's, accepted. Click. Credential 2, blank. System message access pending. Co-administrator authorization required, no override available. The room dropped 10 degrees. Tristan looked confused. Wait, why does it say no override? I thought we had contingency credentials. James from legal stiffened. That was under the old structure. With Karen. Right, said Auditor 1, finally looking up from his clipboard. Where is Karen? Tristan chuckled. Actually chuckled and said, oh, she's moved on. We've restructured. Her role was, well, legacy. No longer needed. But don't worry, all her documentation's intact. We've been onboarding her replacement for weeks. Auditor 1 blinked once. So you terminated the primary compliance administrator before the scheduled federal audit, James coughed. It was a strategic realignment. We see, said Auditor 2. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Who's her co-administrator? Gavin paled. Tristan looked around like someone might whisper the answer in his ear. James pulled out his phone, already texting HR. Auditor 3 was now clearly enjoying herself. You mean to tell us, she said slowly, that no one here knows who's currently authorized as the second gatekeeper on your compliance system? I'm sure we have it on record, James muttered. Then pull the record, said Auditor 1. Now. HR was looped in. Frantic whispers in Slack channels. A flurry of footsteps from down the hall. Within 5 minutes they had it. A PDF on official letterhead, signed, time-stamped, notarized, filed 6 months ago, designating the co-administrator as Leonard S. Dupree, the breakroom custodian, part-time, early shift, clocked out by 7:15 every morning. Tristan blinked at the document, then back at legal, as if the ink might rearrange itself into something more comforting. This has to be a joke. Oh, it's real, said James, voice low. Karen filed it per internal protocol. It's a valid co-admin designation. Auditor 2 tilted her head. Was Leonard trained on the audit system? He mops, Gavin whispered. There was a long, horrifying pause. Then Auditor 3 started laughing, like actual, full-throated laughter. Auditor 2 cracked a smirk. Even Auditor 1 let out a dry little chuckle before covering it with a cough. This, said Auditor 2, is a first. Tristan looked like he might faint. Behind the glass walls, the ops team watched silently as their compliance castle collapsed inward. And me? I was 2 counties away, on my porch with a cup of black tea and a smug little cat on my lap. Not that they knew that yet. Leonard S. Dupree, the lead auditor, read aloud, squinting at the document as if the letters might unscramble into something less ridiculous. Co-administrator of the federal compliance portal. Was silence. A single, high-pitched fluorescent buzz filled the conference room. Then Auditor 2 started giggling. Not chuckling, not smirking, giggling. Like a middle schooler at a funeral who just saw a fart meme. Auditor 3 tried to hold it together, but lost it when she looked over and read Leonard's job title on the attached HR sheet. Facilities Associate Roman 2, Restroom Ops. Jesus, she wheezed. This is a first. Across the table, Tristan's neck turned the color of overcooked ham. He stared at the document like it had personally betrayed him. Legal, who just 30 minutes ago was confidently spouting phrases like industry best-in-class framework, now huddled like rats in a lifeboat, whispering aggressively behind cupped hands. James finally broke the silence. We didn't realize Karen's designation was still active. The lead auditor raised an eyebrow, terminated the only credentialed compliance architect without verifying the chain of custody protocol. Tristan blinked. She wasn't the only one. She had backups. No, the auditor said. She was the backup. That's how she structured it. According to this, she filed for co-admin status 6 months ago. Fully authorized, signed, legal approved. The auditor tapped the paper, and she named a custodian as her only co-admin. James cleared his throat. Technically, role allows any verified employee on payroll. There's no stipulation on department. Oh, we're well aware, said Auditor 2, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. That's what makes it so elegant. Tristan muttered something about IT overrides and turned to Gavin, who was now hunched behind his laptop like he wished the screen could swallow him whole. Just get in there and switch the admin creds, Tristan snapped. Gavin looked up, genuinely horrified. I can't. An admin? Of the dashboard, he said, the visual layer. Not the audit core. Only Karen and Leonard have keys to that. Then call Leonard, Tristan barked. A long pause. Leonard, James said carefully, is in Bermuda. His daughter's wedding. He turned in his work phone. He's unreachable. The auditors exchanged amused glances. Auditor 3 actually popped a mint and leaned back like she was settling in for a matinee. Your entire federal audit trail, the lead auditor said slowly, is locked behind credentials controlled by a janitor who is not currently on site, cannot be reached, and was never trained on the system. James opened his mouth, closed it. Correct, Gavin said, technically. What happens if we can't get in? Tristan asked, his voice brittle like cracking ice. Auditor 2 smiled sweetly. You fail the audit. You breach the Federal Data Retention Clause. Your contract is suspended pending investigation. But we've done nothing wrong. Tristan exploded. Except lose control of your compliance environment, the lead auditor said, which, per federal guidelines, is wrong. Another message came in on Slack. The vendor systems had flagged missing access credentials from the compliance sync. Automatic alerts had gone out. 2 partner agencies were now suspending data exchange until further notice. Tristan rubbed his face like he was trying to erase his own features. Can't we override the system? No, Gavin said. It's not override-enabled. Karen hard-coded that into the policy after the 2022 backdoor scare. James added, and it's against policy to alter credential architecture during an audit. It'll look like tampering. Tristan looked around, wild-eyed. Then what the hell can we do? No one answered. Outside the glass walls, the ops floor was watching, pretending not to, but definitely watching. Eyes over laptop screens, fake typing, sideways glances, kind of tension that spreads like mold in old drywall. Finally, the lead auditor stood. Well, that concludes our first stage review. We'll be filing our preliminary report within 24 hours. We'll also be notifying the Federal Compliance Board that your access chain is invalid and your system is currently unresponsive due to unauthorized administrative turnover. He snapped his briefcase shut. We'll be back. The auditors walked out, not rushed, not angry, just amused. Tristan sat down slowly, like a man realizing the quicksand had reached his chin. In a forgotten corner of the room, the document with Leonard's name on it fluttered slightly from the AC vent. It was over. They just hadn't admitted it yet. By noon, the word failure was stamped across every screen in the audit room. The official term was non-compliant, custody breach. But the meaning was clear. Audit failed. Logs inaccessible. Chain of custody broken. Very backbone of the $180 million contract. Obliterated because nobody thought the old lady in cardigans had teeth. Tristan paced the hallway like a man trying to outrun his own resume. He'd taken off his blazer and rolled up his sleeves, like effort could fix what arrogance had detonated. There's gotta be a workaround, he kept saying over and over, like a toddler chanting for candy. Some override, some fail-safe. Backdoor access protocol. She couldn't have locked everything. Gavin looked like he hadn't slept in days. She did, he said, staring at his monitor like it had just slapped him. Karen wrote the redundancy protocol. She was the one who got legal to ratify it. She designed it so that if the original 2 co-admins go offline or refuse to authenticate, the system locks until a federal compliance officer intervenes. Tristan stopped pacing. Get a compliance officer. That's what the audit was. HR, legal, IT, hell, even marketing were now in a full-blown code red. You couldn't walk 10 feet without hearing the words crisis, breach, or Karen spoken in a hushed, trembling voice. Karen, who everyone thought was just a paperwork ghost. Karen, who nobody invited to strategy lunches. Karen, who once asked for an ergonomic mouse and was told to manage expectations. One engineer, Brent, been around almost as long as I had, whispered what half the room was thinking. She warned us. You just didn't listen. The fallout spread like ink in water. Partner agencies were first. Their systems flagged the failed sync with ours. Within hours, shared dashboards were shut down. Contracts paused. Data feeds interrupted. 3 collaborative vendors pulled scheduled deployments citing compliance uncertainty. One sent a notice of reconsideration for renewal. That's contract speak for we're about to walk. Then the real calls started. The founder, old school, rarely seen, rumored to still fax things, was on a conference call when the first email from Washington hit his inbox. It wasn't angry, just concerned. Can you confirm the integrity of your compliance architecture in light of recent administrative changes? 2 hours later, a second email, this time with a subject line that simply read, Escalation request data chain breach inquiry. Tristan turned white. James from legal tried to downplay it. We'll clarify the situation, explain the transition, show them the new team is ready. You're not ready, Gavin snapped. You can't even get into the logs. I'll authorize new admins, Tristan said, grasping at straws. Auditor 1, back early from lunch, shut that down instantly. No, Tristan blinked. No. Failed the audit, the auditor said flatly. You don't get to reset the chain of custody after the breach. That's not how compliance works. You're locked until a federal arbiter reviews and reinstates your structure. You don't understand, Tristan said, voice rising. We have active projects, agencies waiting. We can't just go dark. Then you shouldn't have fired the only person holding the keys. Silence. Even the A/C seemed to pause. Legal tried one last Hail Mary, a formal request for emergency override authority. The auditor's reply, a smirk, request denied. Policy 14.2. Karen wrote it. We approved it. You can't change it mid-review. By 3:30, internal Slack channels were imploding. The #Ops General chat had over 900 unread messages. Someone leaked screenshots of the audit dashboard to Reddit. Audit Trail is a trail of tears meme was born within the hour. A whisper started among employees, soft at first, then growing. Karen was right. By 5 p.m., one of our largest vendors pulled their upcoming onboarding pilot. Pending resolution of your internal control dispute, they wrote. In vendor speak, that meant we don't trust you anymore. Tristan canceled the next 3 staff meetings. Word was holed up in a corner office calling Leonard's daughter on Facebook. No response. The founder finally issued a company-wide statement. One sentence. We are aware of the situation. Translation, we're screwed. And me? I was sitting on a park bench, watching geese fight over half a bagel, while reading the Slack leaks forwarded to me by an old teammate. The one where someone had pinned a gif of Gandalf, whispering she cannot be summoned by you. I sipped my tea. Monday was over, and they hadn't even begun to unravel what came next. Tuesday morning, 7:42 a.m., the notice arrived, not a call, not a meeting, just an email with a government domain, subject line in bold, notice of pending decertification, noncompliance chain of custody violation, no emojis, no polite buffer language, just a digital bullet that tore through every department and left a smoking crater where future revenue used to live. Legal read it 3 times before speaking. They're pulling certification, James finally whispered, eyes wide. Unless we can prove administrative integrity before the week's out, we lose federal clearance. No clearance meant no contracts. No contracts meant no funding. No funding meant the IPO Tristan kept bragging about on his podcast was now as dead as his credibility. HR sprang into action, sort of. Calls were placed. Emails sent. Karen W. was searched in every employee system. Her employee file was marked inactive. Her email auto-responded with a generic bounce. The emergency number, disconnected. The backup number, a fax line, her Slack profile, deleted. Even her badge entry log just stopped Friday, 4:52 p.m. Swipe out, never returned, they panicked. Tristan, now visibly graying, started shouting across open floor plans. Offer her whatever she wants. Title. Salary. Back pay. Hell, I'll fly to her house if I have to. And oh, he tried. I heard he even tracked down an old contact form I'd made for cat rescue fundraiser and messaged, Hi Karen, urgent, audit disaster. Can we talk? He never got a reply because I was done talking. I wasn't cruel. I didn't twist the knife. I didn't post some smug thread on social media or leak files to the press. I simply made myself unreachable. In a world where control is everything, absence is the loudest scream you can make. Meanwhile, partner agencies weren't waiting around for the funeral. 3 joint projects were formally suspended. A 4th went live with a statement that included the phrase, pending resolution of internal control dispute with third-party vendor. That was us. We were the dispute. Vendor support teams started ghosting emails. Scheduled demos were rescheduled indefinitely. Procurement inboxes sat quiet. Internally, it was a full-on implosion. Departments were instructed to hold all spending. Travel was frozen. The internal #celebrations Slack channel was quietly archived. People started updating their resumes in the bathroom. Some just didn't show up at all. One engineer even asked aloud in the middle of the break room, wait, do we even exist if we're not federal certified? By Wednesday, founder had called 3 emergency board meetings. During one of them, someone pitched rebooting the compliance system from scratch. It was Gavin who answered. We can't rebuild it. Not in time. It was Karen's design, her architecture. There's no manual, she was the manual. That's when legal made the obvious suggestion, bring her back, reinstate, apologize if needed, pay her if necessary, just fix it. And that's when someone realized no one knew how to reach her, hadn't posted on social media, no forwarding address, no mutual friends who'd talk. Even Leonard, the accidental co-admin, was unreachable. He'd apparently flown to an island with no Wi-Fi and left his daughter in charge of his phone. She thought Tristan's voicemail was a prank and never called back. Karen was a ghost, except she had posted one thing, a quiet update on LinkedIn. No hashtags, no drama, just a change in job title. Karen W. Systems architect available for short-term recovery roles. References upon request. Underneath, 3 likes. 1 from an executive at a major competitor, 1 from a federal contract officer, 1 from her cat rescue page. Tristan saw it, forwarded it. She's on the market, he wrote. But what he didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that the post wasn't a plea. It was a declaration. I didn't want their offer. I wanted their attention gone. I wanted to let every competitor, every agency, every future employer know, I don't belong to that disaster anymore. I walked out before it burned, and I'm available. They tried to act fast. HR drafted a formal reoffer. Legal approved a crisis bonus. Tristan himself typed a personal apology with 3 different versions, ranging from professional regret to I was wrong and you were right. I was told he practiced saying sweetie in front of the mirror just to cringe less. But it was too late, because what they didn't understand is that trust isn't something you can reset with money or titles. It's something you lose once, and they lost me. The founder flew in that morning on the red-eye from DC, rumored to have skipped 3 high-level meetings and 1 black-tie gala just to be in the room when the final audit report was read. He didn't shake hands, didn't ask for coffee. He walked straight into the boardroom, dropped his coat on a chair, and said to the room, "Read it." James from legal had it printed, double-spaced, stapled at the top corner like a eulogy. The board sat in silence, 7 men and women in expensive blazers, each of them trying to pretend this wasn't the Titanic and they weren't the orchestra. Tristan, somehow still VP in title if not in dignity, sat 2 seats down from the founder, face the color of printer paper. He hadn't spoken since the HR team's last failed attempt to call Leonard's daughter. James began reading aloud. Federal audit concluded 48 hours following non-cooperative access status. Upon investigation, system credentials tied to primary and secondary administrators were found to be inactive, unrecoverable, or unverifiable under Compliance Protocol 8.3a, Clause C. Someone at the table muttered, "Jesus." James kept going. Attempts to reassign access credentials during audit were denied per Federal Data Custody Protocol 12.1. Breach considered structural, not procedural. Cause of failure, administrative mismanagement and unauthorized termination of critical personnel. Tristan flinched like he'd been slapped. The founder didn't blink. Get to the name. James turned to the final page. Swallowed. Per federal chain of custody logging, recovery of compliance architecture requires dual authentication from original administrator and designated co-administrator. Name redacted. That was the moment. No lightning, no explosions, just a line of bureaucratic annihilation delivered in calm monotone. The room went dead silent. "Wait," the CFO said, looking up, blinking slowly. "They redacted the name?" James nodded. "The government redacted the name? They don't want to publicize the compromise," said. "It's that embarrassing." Tristan's voice cracked. "She played us." The founder finally turned. His first words all morning, "No," he said, "you played yourself." The door opened. One of the federal auditors stepped in, uninvited, holding a copy of the same report. She didn't take a seat, just stood in the doorway with the kind of expression that said, "I don't need to sit to watch you burn." "Just so everyone's clear," she said casually, "you gave her the keys." She followed protocol. Tristan tried to speak. Failed. The auditor raised an eyebrow. "You didn't even check who she designated. You were too busy gutting your systems for flexibility." She flipped to the back page, waved it in the air like a playing card. "That co-administrator form, signed, notarized, HR verified. 6 months ago, you approved it." Then she smiled. "And we do love a good punchline." She left without another word. No one moved. No one dared. Later that afternoon, the official press release went live. Federal contract suspended pending internal remediation. Audit failure due to credential breach. VP of Operations Tristan M. resigns, effective immediately. And me? I was in my kitchen, window open, tea steaming gently on the counter. The news ticker scrolled across the TV screen behind me. Breaking. Audit scandal rocks tech firm. Internal sabotage suspected, but sources confirm all protocols were legally followed. Another line blinked in. VP resigns after compliance collapse linked to administrator oversight. I smiled, lifted the cup. "Redundant, sweetie?" I murmured. "Sure, let's go with that."